Thank you, Marge, for participating in our event. Now, now we've heard a lot of COVID outbreak happening in different parts of the world and in the Philippines. Can you tell us your current situation in Bulacan?
Yes, we were heavily affected by the COVID outbreak. This is because of the worldwide, not worldwide, but Luzon enhanced community quarantine. So that means including Bulacan. As a leader, you need to think several steps ahead of what's going to happen. And so in order to do that, we came up with the business continuity plan. And we are a BPO. We just cannot cease operations, unlike those other businesses, because we have clients that we need to continuously cater
Mm.
to outside of the Philippines. And so the business continuity plan, the goal is to ensure that we are still operational, but at the same time we are taking care of the health of our employees. And so
Mm-hmm.
came up with a decision to employ or do flexible work arrangement where some of the people would be working from home and some would be on skeletal workforce, something like that. Um, but when we came up with a plan, the next question is how fast can we deploy that plan? And
Mm-hmm.
it was very funny because if I can still recall, we've done it for just 3 days, and it was very, very fast that we hardly can recall exactly the details that transpired during the 3 days. I think what
It happened
contributes,
so fast. It
yes,
happened.
so, so fast, because the agents themselves are worried. They are getting worried that the block the each barangays are blocking the passageways. And the virus do not know any boundaries. They're fast. The next thing we know, we have this about number of cases that are increasing every day, and so we need to really act fast. And I think what contributed to this is that the agents themselves actioned right away when we announced, or when I announced on Facebook. We had a Facebook live. So I announced to the agents that we will all be on a flexible work arrangement and all that stuff. And the HR team explained the work from home policy. The next thing we know, the agents are packing up setting up their computers and finding a space in their homes where they can work. So the cooperation and collaboration of the management and the employees, that made it successful for us to employ this, work from home and a flexible arrangement in about
Mm.
3 days after coming up with a policy, or a plan. So that's what made it work for us.
For our audience information, Marge Aviso is the CEO of Telework PH, one of the large rural-based BPOs in the Philippines. They have around 500 agents and growing. And currently, how much of your operation is now working at home?
So
Around,
about 60% of the
wow,
operations,
that's still
yes.
huge. And you're really able to do that in
Yeah.
3 days. Wow, amazing. It's really impressive. Now, let's go back to the outbreak. In your own opinion, how has this outbreak challenged us as entrepreneurs?
I would say this experience really caused disruption, economically, socially, and even personally. I remember we were chatting on Facebook. I told the directors that this experience, I had a lot of takeaways from this experience. And part of that was, one of the things that you would consider again is the alternative way of ensuring that the operations is continuous. Like, for instance, we
Mm,
are talking about, it's like we were forced to transition to digital way of things, digitalization. Like, how can we, if we are going to have, we're going to lose some workforce, what other source of income can we produce or come up with in
mm,
telework that would not require human capital, things like that. And then what are the tools that can help us, make sure that everyone's productive even if they're working from home. And I remember this. I remember I have a friend on Facebook, and she is running an online. Sorry, she's running a physical English school, and she
mhm,
messaged me and was really asking for help. How she would transition that business into an online school, and so I gave her a bit of information about that. So yeah, they would be open to exploring other areas of making sure that the business is still operational.
Marge, you mentioned earlier about the business continuity plan that you have for your business. Was
Yes.
this created on the day or the season wherein the quarantine was implemented, or was it a plan before it was the quarantine?
Yeah, before the quarantine. So, like I
No.
said, as a business leader, you have to think steps ahead, and
Mm.
it's a very timely decision because then the government is employing, or the government is starting to give these mandates that we need to shut down the operations, things like that, and then there would be no groceries, or I mean, there would be no other businesses available. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
perfect timing.
it was really hard for everyone. Now, for startups and local businesses, I know COVID-19 is really a challenging. Uh, I think we can call it another equalizer. The third equalizer was internet. I think this one is the next equalizer. For
Yeah.
local business, well, how do you think what do you think will be their action plan for them to be able to survive?
Yeah, I would say take responsibility and action right away. Because if you're going to, like, for instance, as a small business owner, of course, I'm assuming some of them would not have the emergency funds available. So they would be leaning on the government's help. But don't wait for it. It will be more difficult. So first, of course, you need to have your emergency funds available in times like this. You need to have policies in place to ensure that your employees are well taken care of, and that they are still productive regardless of whether they are in the office or working from home.
Mhm.
And yeah, the business continuity plan must always be updated whatever the current condition is, because it's essentially changing, and right now we are expecting the worst case scenario, and that would be an extension of the 1 month quarantine. So what's going to be your next steps, right? What
Mhm.
are you going to do? Is that going the flexible work arrangement, is that going to continue, or you're going to decide to work on another source of income, things like that.
Wow. Considering that you have 500 employees, that is a major breakthrough in your company. So the takeaways
Yeah.
here, as CEOs, we need to think in advance. You should have able to prepare your emergency funds already. Business continuity plan is in place. Home work policy. What else?
Yeah, essentially in the contingency plan or the continuity plan, you'll have everything in there, like
Mm.
what's going to be your plan for your business and for your employees as well. So that's essentially going to be all in there.
For new employees, how much of their income should be allocated to emergency funds or
For employees
contingency?
or for businesses.
I think it's for business. I
Oh,
think
for
it is becoming a requirement currently, considering that the time is so confusing. And
yeah.
in your part, how much should be of the current salary or something, the current company income should be allocated to emergency and contingency funds?
We do the usual and the basic setting aside of about 20%.
Mhm.
So we ensure that we set that aside for the business. However, sometimes it gets used for some other expenses that are
Mhm.
really, but as long as that's an emergency, you should be all good. And then in your financial projections, you should be able to come up with another way of getting that back. So as
Mhm.
long as you're not replenishing everything, or I
Mhm.
mean, you're not consuming everything.
Now, with the current general community quarantine in place, I'm sure people would think that entrepreneurs would have a lot of time staying at home. What do you think entrepreneurs should do to be more productive?
I think if you're an entrepreneur, you should always be doing something. And again, ask yourself what's going to be next, because
Mhm.
you can't be compliant, or you can't be just doing nothing after this. do you see your business going back to how it's doing it, or do you want to see your business exploring other areas? You ask yourself what's going to be the next thing. How are your employees gonna move on? Maybe your employees are experiencing panic anxiety. How are you helping them? Things like that. You need to really consider what's going to be happening in the future.
That's good to know. That was closing message for all the local and small businesses out there.
Yeah, definitely, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling anxious, worried about the situation, that's okay. That's completely normal. I've experienced it myself. But please don't blame anyone. There's no one to blame. Everyone is suffering the same. But also at the same time, you have to move on fast. I think if you're gonna be worrying about it, nothing is gonna happen. You just have to simply make action or take action about the situation, and then also make sure that you work on what you can control. Because right now, this pandemic is something we cannot control, and so if you work on something that you can control within your organization, that will make a difference. And another thing is to dedicate just 2 hours of your day on social media or on the news, because it's going to be very, very stressful to see a lot of negative news, and
True,
you can
true.
see the spread. That's going to drain you emotionally. And also find a way to vent. If you have support system like your family and friends who can understand you, or maybe your fellow employees, talk to them, because I think that's one thing that also helped us. If we show that we are strong, we are courageous, that our employees can rely on us, that would give them a boost. So show to them that despite these fears, despite these anxieties, you are still there for them.
Thank you very much, Marge, for your time, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you
Maraming
so much.
salamat.
Maraming salamat. Thank you so much.